running for one night.
Buttercup, I thought you were gone forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Your childhood was not as innocent as you remember. Beneath the bright colors and catchy theme songs, the 90s hid stories about purgatory grief, nuclear fallout, collapsing cities, and minds on the brink. What if the babies never existed? What if superheroes were engineered weapons? What if entire playgrounds were rehearsals for power? Tonight we unravel 13 dark theories that actually make sense, and once you hear them, you will never watch these cartoons the same way again. Ed, and Eddy. The cul-de-sac is purgatory. You start to notice something is wrong the longer you watch this show. No parents, no real outside world, just a sun-baked cul-de-sac that feels sealed off from reality. Ed, and Eddy premiered in 1999 and was created by Danny Antonucci. On the surface, it is about 3 boys running endless scams to buy jawbreakers. Underneath that sugar rush sits something far stranger. The theory suggests the cul-de-sac is not a neighborhood at all. It is a holding place between life and whatever comes next. Each child represents a different time period based on clothing and slang. Rolf feels pulled from an older agrarian past. Johnny carries the lonely energy of a child out of step with his era. The Canker sisters live on the edge like unwanted intruders from another realm. Even the architecture feels frozen in time. No one grows up, no one leaves. Summer never truly ends. Watch how conflicts repeat in cycles. The Eds fail. They are punished. They try again. It feels ritualistic. Punishment without escape is a classic purgatory motif. The children are exaggerated versions of vices. Greed, pride, anger, vanity, each one trapped with their flaws amplified. There is no parental guidance because perhaps there is no life beyond this test. Cartoon Network pushed the show as absurd slapstick, yet Antonucci always leaned into grotesque design and uncomfortable silence. That off-balance energy feeds the theory. The series ran for nearly a decade and ended with a television film that finally introduced the Ed's brother and a form of closure. Some fans argue that film represents Judgment Day, the truth finally revealed, forgiveness offered. Its legacy is powerful. It became one of Cartoon Network's longest-running originals and influenced a wave of chaotic animation in the early 2000s. Even if the purgatory theory is not canon, it sticks because the world feels sealed and haunted. It makes you question why no adult ever walks into frame, and that question lingers long after the laugh track fades. But this is only the beginning. If a sunny cul-de-sac can hide existential dread, then imagine what happens when childhood itself is called into question. Rugrats. The babies are imaginary.
17 miles of twinkle lights. It can't get any better.
Well, especially if I don't have...
At first, it feels harmless. Babies crawling through suburban adventures, narrated in their own secret language. Rugrats debuted in 1991, created by Arlene Klasky, Gabor Ksupo, and Paul Germain. It became one of Nickelodeon's defining shows and a cultural giant. Yet one theory turns the playpen into something tragic. The claim is simple and disturbing. Most of the babies never existed. They are fragments of Angelica's imagination created to cope with trauma and loneliness. Tommy becomes a symbol of a child who passed away. The DeVilles represent an unresolved pregnancy. Chucky reflects anxiety over a lost parent. Under this lens, Angelica is not a brat. She is a child building companions from grief. Look closely and the world shifts. Adults rarely understand what is happening because the adventures are internal. Angelica often controls the narrative. She manipulates the babies. She rewrites events. That control can read like a child trying to master chaos she cannot process. The tone of the show blends innocence with subtle unease. Hallways stretch, rooms feel distorted, Perspectives are warped. It mirrors how memory works when filtered through imagination. Nickelodeon never endorsed this theory, and the creators have framed the show as a celebration of childhood perception. And still the theory gained traction online because it stitches together small inconsistencies into a cohesive emotional arc. The idea that a lonely child invents an entire social world hits harder than any monster under the bed. Rugrats ran for 9 seasons and expanded into films and spin-offs. It defined 90s animation with bold outlines and surreal backgrounds. Its legacy includes launching Nickelodeon's dominance in original cartoons and shaping a generation's idea of toddler humor. The imaginary theory does not erase that joy. It shadows it. It makes every laugh feel fragile. If the previous theory trapped children in an afterlife, this one suggests something more intimate, a child rewriting reality to survive it. And the countdown is only getting darker from here. The Powerpuff Girls. The professor created weapons, not daughters. She
Feel my wrath, O citizens of Townsville!
Trouble! Let's...
bright colors, sugar spice, and everything nice. Then Chemical X. The Powerpuff Girls exploded onto television in 1998, created by Craig McCracken. It looked like a parody of superhero tropes. It felt like girl power wrapped in pop art. But one theory strips away the glitter and reveals something colder. The idea is that Professor Utonium did not accidentally create children. He engineered weapons. Think about it. The girls are deployed constantly into violent combat. They are kindergarten age, yet tasked with defending a city from monsters, criminals, and world-ending threats. The mayor calls them before law enforcement. The professor encourages their heroics. There is pride in his voice when they destroy entire city blocks to stop a villain. The theory suggests Townsville normalized child soldiers because they are effective. A Chemical X becomes less a whimsical accident and more a breakthrough compound. The professor is not evil. He is ambitious. He loves the girls yet also relies on their power. That contradiction gives the theory weight. The girls never question why they must fight. Their identity is tied to conflict. Peace rarely lasts long. Even the villains reinforce the concept. Mojo Jojo was once the professor's lab assistant. A failed experiment turned enemy. It implies reckless scientific ambition. The world keeps producing threats that justify the girls' existence, almost as if the system needs them to keep functioning. Cartoon Network positioned the series as revolutionary for female-led action. It became a merchandising juggernaut and influenced superhero animation for years. Its legacy includes redefining what action cartoons aimed at younger audiences could look like. Yet the weapon theory lingers because it reframes empowerment as exploitation. Little girls praised for violence because it serves adult structures. When you re-watch certain battles, the destruction feels excessive. Skyscrapers fall. Explosions light the sky. Then everything resets. The reset feels suspicious, almost like a training simulation designed to keep weapons sharp. And if you think that is unsettling, wait until you consider a show where horror might not be supernatural at all, where monsters could simply be misunderstood, strangers filtered through fear. Courage, the Cowardly Dog. The monsters are just normal people. A lonely farmhouse sits in the middle of nowhere. Wind howls across empty plains. A Courage the Cowardly Dog premiered in 1999, created by John R. Dilworth. It is remembered for nightmare fuel imagery and existential dread hidden inside a children's time slot. The theory that follows might be the most psychologically plausible of them all. Courage sees monsters everywhere, grotesque faces, warped bodies, creatures that defy biology. But what if the audience is seeing the world through his anxiety? What if these visitors are ordinary travelers, salesman neighbors? Courage is a traumatized dog abandoned as a puppy and launched into space during the origin story. That trauma alone could explain hypervigilance. Muriel often treats intruders kindly. Eustace responds with irritation, not terror. Only Courage interprets events as apocalyptic horror. The show consistently frames scenes from his perspective. Camera angles distort. Sound design amplifies breathing and heartbeat. It mimics panic attacks more than monster invasions. The farmhouse setting strengthens the theory. Isolation can heighten paranoia. A delivery man becomes a threat. A traveling performer morphs into a demon. Courage acts heroically, but perhaps he is protecting his owners from misunderstandings of his own making. The idea that fear reshapes perception gives the show unexpected emotional depth. The series gained cult status for pushing boundaries of children's horror. It influenced later animation, willing to experiment with unsettling tone. Critics praised its creativity, while parents sometimes questioned its intensity. That tension helps cement its legacy. The theory resonates because it does not rely on cosmic fantasy. It relies on psychology. Trauma reframing reality. Anxiety painting ordinary life in monstrous colors. It transforms a bizarre cartoon into a study of fear itself. We have now moved from spiritual limbo to imaginary companions, to engineered superweapons and unreliable perception. Yet the next theory questions something even more foundational. Not monsters, not imagination, the very structure of society inside a playground. Batman, the animated series. Gotham creates its own villains. Thunder cracks across a skyline soaked in shadow. Batman, the animated series premiered in 1992, developed by Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski. It was darker than most cartoons of its era. Art Deco towers, moral ambiguity, tragic music cues. Children watched it after school, yet it carried the weight of noir cinema. The theory is unsettling because it shifts blame. A Gotham does not suffer from random madness. Gotham manufactures it. Look at the Rogues Gallery. Mr. Freeze is broken by corporate greed and a medical catastrophe. Two face falls after political corruption and betrayal. The Joker emerges from criminal underworld chaos tied to economic desperation. Nearly every villain has roots in systemic failure. Batman fights symptoms, not causes. He patrols rooftops and delivers criminals to Arkham Asylum, yet Arkham never rehabilitates. It recycles. The same broken souls return. The city remains corrupt. Police struggle with bribery. Politicians hide scandals. Wealth inequality looms in the background. Bruce Wayne funds charities, yet the structural rot persists. This theory suggests Gotham needs villains because they justify its vigilante protector, a city addicted to crisis. But Batman becomes both solution and perpetuator. His existence allows deeper reform to stall. Crime persists because the spectacle of hero versus villain distracts from institutional accountability. The show often portrayed empathy toward antagonists. Episodes end with sorrow rather than triumph. That tonal choice fuels the interpretation. The creators wanted complexity. They drew inspiration from mature comics and classic films. The result redefined superhero animation and influenced later series across the industry. Its legacy is enormous. It shaped the definitive voice of Batman for a generation. It won awards and expanded into films and spin-offs. Yet the darker reading lingers because it mirrors real-world urban struggle. Cities that produce inequality also produce crime. And the show never says it outright, but it implies it with every broken origin story. And if Gotham reflects systemic decay, then imagine a simpler setting. A sunny playground, bright primary colors, laughing children. What if even that cheerful space hides a blueprint for power politics and social control? Recess. The playground is a political allegory. Bright whistles echo across asphalt. Recess launched in 1997, created by Paul Germain and Joe and Sola Bahir. It follows a group of fourth graders navigating the unspoken rules of the playground. At first glance, it is nostalgia wrapped in Saturday morning energy. Under closer inspection, it resembles a miniature state. There is a monarch. King Bob rules from atop the jungle gym. There are enforcers. There are class divisions. The Ashleys form an elite clique that resembles aristocracy. The Diggers operate like laborers. Kindergartners function as an unpredictable foreign power. The teachers step in only when chaos threatens the broader order. The theory argues that the playground mirrors adult governance. Elections are staged. Coups are attempted. Alliances shift based on survival. TJ and his friends often act as reformists challenging unfair systems. Yet every victory is temporary. Structure resets. The hierarchy remains intact. It teaches children about power long before they vote in real elections. The absence of overt adult intervention is key. Authority exists, but rarely addresses root inequality. Instead, it enforces surface-level peace. That dynamic echoes civic structures where deeper issues are postponed in favor of stability. The show balanced humor with sharp social commentary. It aired for several seasons and expanded into a theatrical film and television specials. Its legacy lies in capturing the politics of childhood with uncanny precision. Viewers recognized their own school experiences in exaggerated form. This theory does not paint the playground as evil. It suggests it is preparation, a training ground for navigating social systems. Yet, once you see the allegory, you cannot unsee it. Every dodgeball match becomes symbolic conflict. Every lunch table becomes a seat of influence. The countdown grows heavier. We began with spiritual limbo and imagined friends. We passed through weaponized children and urban decay. Now even recess feels like rehearsal for a complicated world. And the next theory pulls us inward again. Back into the fragile mind of a lonely boy who might be rewriting reality. Doug. Everything happens inside his head.
Come on, people, stay awake out there. We blew the shutout. They're gaining on us.
Soft music plays over a sketchbook-style world. Doug premiered in 1991, created by Jim Jenkins. It followed an anxious 11-year-old navigating school crushes, bullies, and small embarrassments. The tone felt gentle and reflective. Yet one theory quietly reshapes the entire series. The idea is that much of what we see never truly happens. Doug Funny is a chronic overthinker. He narrates constantly. He daydreams in vivid fantasy sequences where he becomes Quailman or a rock star or a misunderstood hero. The line between imagination and reality blurs so often that the structure itself becomes suspect. Consider how exaggerated his rivals appear. Roger is almost cartoonishly cruel. Patty is impossibly perfect. Our conflicts inflate into epic crises only to dissolve by episode end. The world bends to Doug's internal monologue. Colors feel symbolic. Minor events carry operatic weight. It mirrors the emotional scale of adolescence rather than objective truth. This theory suggests Doug processes ordinary life through dramatic projection. A simple hallway encounter becomes a heroic quest. A class presentation morphs into a nightmare stage, fright disaster. His mind rewrites scenarios in real time to test outcomes before acting. The show then becomes less about events and more about coping mechanisms. Jim Jenkins designed Doug as an introspective character drawn from his own childhood journals. That origin strengthens the theory. The narrative feels like memory filtered through imagination. It explains tonal shifts without requiring supernatural logic. Doug became one of the foundational Nickelodeon Nicktoons and later moved to Disney. Its legacy lies in emotional honesty. It captured insecurity with rare gentleness. Even without the theory, the show functions as psychological portrait. With the theory, it becomes something deeper, a meditation on how the mind protects itself through rehearsal and fantasy. If this interpretation is true, then the world we watched was never stable ground. It was interior space, and that prepares us for something far more self-aware. A show that openly hints it knows it is being watched. Animaniacs. The Warner siblings are trapped intellectual property.
Listen, you nasty little munchkins. I don't get paid extra for bringing tourists along.
A water tower stands on a studio lot. Inside it live 3 chaotic siblings. Animaniacs premiered in 1993, developed by Tom Ruegger under the executive production of Steven Spielberg. It thrived on meta-humor, rapid-fire jokes, and constant references to Hollywood power structures. The theory is less supernatural and more existential. Yakko, Wakko, and Dot are not simply cartoon characters. They are corporate assets locked away until profitable. The show frequently jokes about contracts, executives, and studio mandates. The siblings break the fourth wall with alarming ease. They know they are animated. They know they belong to Warner Brothers. Why are they sealed in a water tower? The official explanation is comedic mischief containment. The darker reading suggests confinement for exploitation. When ratings demand it, they are released to perform. When trends shift, they are shelved. It mirrors how intellectual property cycles through nostalgia revivals and reboots. The humor often targets corporate greed and censorship. Characters mock executives by name. They comment on network pressure. That self-awareness turns the water tower into symbolic prison. Endless performance without agency. Animaniacs became a cultural phenomenon praised for intelligent writing and layered satire. It influenced animation that respected adult viewers without abandoning child audiences. Its revival decades later reinforced the property metaphor. Characters returned because the brand regained value. The unsettling aspect lies in how accurate the allegory feels. Animated icons do not retire. They persist as long as revenue flows. The siblings laugh and sing, yet they are bound to studio ownership indefinitely. We have now crossed into territory where fiction acknowledges its own cage. But the countdown is not finished. One more layer remains. A series whose humor masked something far more unstable inside a single volatile mind. The Ren and Stimpy Show. Ren is a portrait of psychological collapse. Loud screams, sudden close-ups, skin that stretches into grotesque detail. The Ren and Stimpy Show premiered in 1991, created by John Crifalusi. It shocked early 90s television with its abrasive humor and surreal body horror. Parents were confused. Kids were mesmerized. Executives were nervous. Underneath the chaos sits a theory that feels disturbingly grounded. The interpretation suggests Ren is not just an angry chihuahua. He is a representation of untreated mental instability. His mood swings are violent and unpredictable. He moves from affection to rage in seconds. He hallucinates. He fixates. He spirals into paranoia over trivial events. Stimpy, by contrast, is cheerful and oblivious. Some viewers argue Stimpy functions as dissociation, a softer fragment of the same fractured psyche. Episodes often abandon logic. Reality warps around Ren's breakdowns. Backgrounds melt into abstract color fields. Faces distort into extreme close-ups that feel invasive. That visual language mirrors psychological collapse more than slapstick comedy. Ren lashes out at Stimpy repeatedly, then collapses into remorse. It resembles cycles of emotional volatility. Nickelodeon eventually distanced itself from Crifalusi due to creative clashes and controversy. The show's production history was turbulent. That behind-the-scenes instability feeds the interpretation that the series itself was an expression of chaos. The humor felt less like jokes and more like nervous energy. Despite controversy, the show left a permanent mark on animation. It pushed boundaries of what cable cartoons could depict. It influenced adult animation that followed in the late 90s and early 2000s. Its legacy is one of provocation and stylistic extremity. The dark theory resonates because it reframes the discomfort as intentional portraiture, not random gross-out humor, but a stylized descent into emotional fragmentation. When Ren screams at the sky, it feels less comedic and more tragic. We have now entered deeply personal territory: imagination, anxiety, institutional decay, corporate imprisonment, psychological breakdown. Yet the final theory on this list pulls us back to a familiar underwater world: bright colors, catchy theme song, and a setting that may hide a catastrophic past. SpongeBob SquarePants. Bikini Bottom is a nuclear test aftermath.
Get it off, get it off, get it off! Get it off, 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 get it off!
A pineapple house rests on the ocean floor. SpongeBob SquarePants premiered in 1999, created by Steven Hillenburg. It became one of the most successful animated series of all time. It looks absurd and cheerful. Yet one widely circulated theory gives its setting a chilling historical echo. Bikini Bottom shares its name with Bikini Atoll. That real location in the Pacific was used for nuclear weapons testing after World War II. The theory suggests the characters' exaggerated biology and surreal physics are the result of radiation. Talking sea sponges, hyperactive squirrels in diving suits, a crab obsessed with profit, a squid locked in artistic frustration, mutations shaped by fallout. The ocean floor setting strengthens the claim. Nuclear detonations underwater alter ecosystems. The show never references radiation directly. Instead, it presents bizarre logic as normal. Fires burn underwater, objects regenerate, characters survive explosive force that would obliterate ordinary life. Steven Hillenburg was a marine science educator before creating the series. That background gives credibility to intentional environmental satire, though not necessarily nuclear allegory. Still, the bikini name choice remains curious. It invites association, whether intended or not. The series built a cultural empire: films, merchandise, memes that persist across generations. Its legacy is massive. It defined late 90s and early 2000s Nickelodeon. Yet the nuclear aftermath theory lingers because it connects whimsy to real historical trauma. If true, it transforms innocent humor into post-catastrophe adaptation. Life continuing in mutated form beneath a scarred sea. That contrast between brightness and devastation leaves a haunting aftertaste. And now that we have descended through purgatory, imagined friends, weaponized children, political playgrounds, corporate prisons, fractured minds, and radioactive oceans, it is time to rewind. To step back before the rankings began. To open with something so intriguing that no viewer could possibly click away. The introduction comes next. Dexter's Laboratory. DD is the cosmic correction. A hidden lab behind a suburban bedroom wall. Dexter's Laboratory premiered in 1996, created by Genndy Tartakovsky. It introduced a boy genius with a secret world of inventions beyond adult comprehension. The humor came from sibling rivalry and explosive science experiments. Yet one theory reframes the entire dynamic. The idea is that Dee Dee is not random chaos. She is balance. Every time Dexter builds something that could reshape reality, she appears. She presses a button. She pulls a lever. She dances across control panels with careless joy. The result is destruction. Dexter blames incompetence. The theory argues intervention. Dexter's creations often border on apocalyptic. Time machines, planetary weapons, artificial intelligence beyond control. He lacks moral oversight. Parents never discover the lab. There is no regulatory body. Without DD, his ambition might spiral unchecked. Her disruption keeps the universe stable. Notice how perfectly timed her entrances feel. She rarely interferes with harmless inventions. She arrives when stakes escalate. That pattern suggests design, not clumsiness, but cosmic safeguard disguised as sibling annoyance. The show thrived on visual contrast. Clean geometric lab interiors versus pastel suburban calm. It influenced a generation of animators and helped define Cartoon Network's original identity in the mid-90s. Its legacy includes shaping the action comedy style that later creators adopted. This theory resonates because it adds mythic depth to ordinary sibling conflict. Dee becomes guardian of equilibrium. Dexter becomes warning about unchecked genius. It transforms slapstick into allegory about scientific hubris. We are nearly at the end of the countdown, only 2 remain, and the next theory moves from cosmic balance to something colder, something that questions the origin of chaos itself. Of the Angry Beavers. The finale was an existential breakdown. 2 Beaver brothers build a dam and argue endlessly. The Angry Beavers premiered in 1997, created by Mitch Schauer. It was loud, fast-paced, and absurd. Beneath the slapstick ran a current of self-awareness that became most evident in its rumored finale. The unaired final episode reportedly centered on Norbert and Daggett discovering they were cartoon characters facing cancellation. They spiral into panic. They argue with executives. They confront the idea that their existence depends on ratings. The episode was never broadcast due to network concerns over breaking the fourth wall in such direct fashion. The theory suggests the entire series was building toward that realization. Jokes about production notes, references to scripts, glitches that hint at artificiality. If true, the finale represents a kind of death, characters becoming aware of their own termination. This idea connects to a broader anxiety in late 90s animation. Networks were shifting priorities. Shows ended abruptly. Creative teams clashed with executives. The Beavers' existential crisis mirrors real industry tension. Even without the finale airing, the legend became part of the show's legacy. It reinforced the perception that children's cartoons were capable of complex commentary. The Angry Beavers remains a cult favorite precisely because of its irreverent tone and rumored rebellion. Now we reach the final theory, the one that ties imagination to grief. It feels intimate, it feels human, and it leaves an emotional echo rather than spectacle. Hey, Arnold! The city is quietly collapsing. A football-shaped head wanders through a dense urban neighborhood. Hey, Arnold! Premiered in 1996, created by Craig Bartlett. It followed Arnold navigating friendships while living with his grandparents in a boarding house. The tone balanced warmth with melancholy. The theory suggests the city around Arnold is in slow decline. Adults struggle with unemployment addiction and broken dreams. Boarding house residents carry unresolved trauma. Streets feel both lively and worn. Infrastructure appears aging. The environment hints at post-industrial stagnation. Episodes often focus on forgotten adults, veterans, failed artists, absent parents. Helga's home life is emotionally neglectful. Arnold himself lacks his parents who vanished on humanitarian mission. Children in this world shoulder emotional weight beyond their years. Unlike supernatural theories, this one feels grounded. The show portrays community resilience amid hardship. That realism allows darker interpretation. The city is not magical. It is surviving. Hey Arnold earned critical praise for nuanced storytelling. It addressed issues like immigration poverty and mental health without losing optimism. Its legacy lies in its empathy. The collapse theory does not contradict the show's heart. It deepens it. It frames Arnold as beacon within fragile system. We have now completed the ranking from most disturbing to least. But something is missing. The hook, the invitation, the opening words that make a viewer lean forward and stay. The laughs were real. The memories still glow. But the shadows were always there waiting to be noticed. 13 cartoons. 13 unsettling possibilities. Now the question stays with you. Were these just theories, or were we always being told something darker hiding in plain sight?